As teachers, we're really invested in how our students learn. I mean, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we didn't care about how they learn and care whether they learned or not. So we do a lot of what we call formative assessment as we go along, and we look at how is the student doing this project. We try to get input from just what we observe, from the way the kids answer questions and all the different things that we as teachers do without even thinking about it. And then we drive home at night and we think, well, gee, did they really learn anything? Are they going to remember that on Monday if I taught it on Friday? And we're always trying to figure out how to make that connection, how to cover that gap between what we know they need to know and what they really know. But the one thing I think that we've left out of the picture for so long is we've never done much with figuring out what do the kids think they need to know. What do the kids think about what they want to learn? And how are they going to make that connection? How are they going to cross that gap? So Linguafolio does that. I mean, that does that for us by helping us to add that reflective piece, that piece that is where do the kids think they are? And what do the kids think they need to know? We've never done a lot in education with metacognition, not once we get out of school to learn how to teach. So we don't really have an organized way of figuring out how do kids think about thinking. We don't really have an organized way to figure out how do kids perceive what they need to know. Linguafolio, I think, is a really good step toward providing a construct or providing some sort of parameters or guidance for helping kids figure out for themselves, where am I in a total picture? And if I'm here, how far do I want to go towards there? And if I'm going to go there, how am I going to get there? They've never thought about that before, and I don't think teachers have ever really thought about that before. And I think that the metacognition part of education, teaching kids to think about how they think, I think that's where we need to start instead of starting with where we think they ought to be. And to me, the Linguafolio helped me to see where the kids thought they were. And sometimes that was where I thought they were, but sometimes it wasn't. And as I began to examine where they thought they were, and we began to work through the Linguafolio process, then they began to think, well, if I can do this, can I do the next step? Can I do the next step? And the Linguafolio has it mapped out for them, the steps of learning a language. And they had something to look at, something to follow. They could take their own work and they could put their work here and look at the checklist here, kind of like a rubric, but not as confusing as some rubrics are, because it's very structured. It starts at a very elementary level and it just gently adds the different parts of their learning pieces together. And as they can put their paper here and look at the checklist and even get friends, they did this together a lot. Sometimes they'd say, well, they'd ask their buddy, they'd say, well, do you think this paper shows that I can do this? Or they would check it and their friend would say, nah, you can't do that, look at this, you know? And so they kind of got, so they did this together as a group. And as we did this all together, we discovered that you can indeed figure out where you are in the context of learning, and you can figure out how you can make steps to go toward a higher level. And you can even figure out what the higher level is. And that was just like, I don't think they realized that all this was happening, but as I watched them do it, I was just really astounded by what I was learning from watching how they were figuring this process out. And they taught me so much. And it was so exciting. I think they began to feel different about their learning because they began to figure out what it was they were learning. They began to figure out what they thought they might want to learn. And this year, they're giving me all kinds of ideas about what they want to do. Whereas last year was kind of come in and respond to a prompt or the lesson or what I gave them to do. Now they're telling me, well, now we'd really like to do a PowerPoint on the universe. And we can do this and we can show this. And they are, I guess, the key phrase is taking charge of their learning. That's what we're talking about in education. But I haven't really seen it in the way that I began to see it after doing the Linguafolio experience with the kids.